This episode is designed to inform novice oral historians of several key considerations while planning and launching an oral history project. As many other oral historians will tell you, we all learn by doing, which includes making mistakes along the way. Some of you may only be preparing for one oral history interview, while others have grand visions of a path-breaking collection on a previously untold chapter of human history. Whatever your ambitions, having a well-thought-out plan for doing oral history will facilitate a successful project and help ensure that you and your narrators have an enjoyable and productive experience. Project planning. When you begin to plan an oral history project, you should think strategically. Ask the following questions. What major goals do I have? What are my research questions? Who can best answer these questions? What do I plan to do with the oral histories after they are collected? Some of you may only plan to conduct one interview, but others may be considering several interviews. Most of this information will still be useful to you even if you only plan to interview one person. Once you have developed a significant project idea, prepare, conduct, and process a few interviews to jumpstart the project. These initial interviews will allow you to test some of your hypotheses, build rapport with the community, show potential participants, supporters, and financial sources. Every oral historian learns best by doing. You will probably have a few slip-ups, and more times than not, the interview will be great despite your occasional accident. Like that time I recently forgot to turn on the external microphone to the video recorder. Good thing I always back up with a digital audio recorder. It's most important that you learn from your mistakes. In fact, most of these pro tips that you'll see come from lessons learned the hard way. But if you pay attention, hopefully you can avoid some embarrassments. Contact an archive. Whether or not you intend to plan a large oral history project, you should consider what you plan to do with the interviews. Though not all oral histories are archived, it is a best practice to preserve oral histories in this way. If you plan to archive your oral histories, consider the following advice. Before you reach out to narrators, contact an appropriate archive to ensure that it is capable of preserving the oral history collection and granting access to them. When contacting potential narrators, people will want to know what will happen to their oral histories after they are recorded. Being able to tell narrators that their life stories will be preserved in the Library of Congress, for example, will help them understand the purpose of a project and will ease their concerns about participating. Some questions to consider asking an archivist are: 1. Does this oral history project contribute to the archive's prior collections and subject areas? 2. Does the informed consent document meet their standards? 3. How do they provide access to collections? Do they digitize oral history collections and make them accessible through an online search system? Are collections accessible to the public? 4. How do they manage seals and restrictions? 5. How can you best prepare the collection for archiving? Do they expect oral histories to be transcribed, indexed, abstracted? Organizing a database. The following practices will help you organize an oral history project. Whether you plan to interview 10 or 100 people, these best practices will facilitate the process. A database tracks the project from planning to completion. Excel files work well to keep a running document of the project, its participants, and the various stages of each interview in the process. Pro tip: when you begin an oral history recording, you should prepare a brief introduction which includes all of this information. This introduction will help you, archivists, and other researchers identify the recording if any accompanying documents are lost. When oral historians recorded on cassettes, for example, they would include this information on each tape and sometimes each side of tapes. It's still considered a best practice. Names, date, address, and phone number should also be included on the informed consent document. Having this information organized will be useful when you are sending thank you notes, providing copies of interviews, and following up with the narrators later. Yep. Stages of completion. In addition to the name of narrators, name of interviewer, and dates and locations of the interview, other information to include in a database should represent the progress of the project with answers to questions such as, has the informed consent been signed? Has a thank you card / follow-up letter been sent? Has the interview been transcribed and indexed? Has the narrator reviewed the content and approved it? Shared authority. Has the narrator received a copy of the oral history? Has the interview been edited as necessary? Has the interview been archived and made accessible? This document is incredibly important for oral historians, particularly if they are managing several ongoing projects. You will thank yourself later for organizing a database, and the narrators will appreciate your organizational skills, even if they do not see the amount of work that goes into an oral history project. The truth is, most of us will work on several projects at once, whether we are taking other classes, working other jobs, or interviewing a large number of people. You will be surprised how much information you will forget over time about each oral history interview. So it's important to take the time to document each stage of each interview. Whether you interview 3 people or 300, follow this best practice. You'll note, too, that developing a time index and compiling metadata is listed here as an important stage of project completion. This will be discussed later in this module. Research themes list. In the same way that a database helps you stay organized, a research themes list helps you stay efficient, productive, and adaptable. A research themes list is a running document that oral historians use to compile information such as research and subject themes, further questions to consider, contact information for potential participants, historical information such as timeline, places, names, references that are discussed in interviews, names of organizations, suggestions for additional readings, and ideas that develop as you continue to interview and research the topic. Pro tip: oral historians typically revise their questions to fit the circumstances of each individual interview. But we also often ask certain key questions to all participants in a project. Asking the same question to a large number of participants will be helpful to researchers as they try to understand individual and collective experiences. Many questions will evolve over time as the project continues. As you gain new insights about your project, you should incorporate new questions into your interviews so the project improves and develops with each new one. Descriptive time indices. An index is an accessible document which includes vitally important information about each interview in a project and describes content during a segment. You can think of this as a detailed table of contents, but instead of topics listed by page number, they're listed by time in the interview. For example, you might note that a narrator discussed newspaper coverage of, say, 9/11, and you would note this was mentioned at minute 24 of the interview. Why do this? Interviewers may want to revisit previous interviews to develop their questions or reflect on the process. The index facilitates this review process. This information may vary according to the needs of the project. More detailed and descriptive time indices enhance the accessibility of an interview, not just for other researchers, but also for participants in the project. A full transcription can be lengthy and laborious to review. A time index provides a summary of the content within a time frame. Having a description of the content every 5 minutes is often most helpful. Archivists typically include descriptive time indices when they digitize collections and create metadata. If you already have prepared quality time indices, an archivist will thank you. Pro tip: as you review interviews and write descriptive time indices, edit a handful of clips, either video or audio, that discuss interesting or insightful experiences, or just really great storytelling. These clips will help you share the project with potential narrators or donors. If you have the permission, consider sharing some of these on social media to make them more accessible and to raise awareness of the topics you are researching.